Hello and welcome to today's 10-minute episode of The Listening Lounge. My name is Nick Day, CEO of JGA Recruitment Group, specialist payroll and HR recruiters.
Today I'm joined by Dr. Jen O'Ryan, who is an inclusion, diversity and equity strategist and expert who is very much focused on helping people to build authentically inclusive and welcoming companies. This is absolutely top agenda stuff for a lot of you in your business at the moment. So I hope this will be a very insightful journey into the world of ED&I. Why is everyone talking about diversity and inclusion now? It wasn't necessarily top of the agenda for HR professionals, even I'd say as close as sort of 2 or 3 years ago. But right now it seems to be absolute top priority, which makes me think, one, why wasn't it before? And B, why is it now?
Yeah, and there's so many different elements of that. So I started really focusing in DEI about 6 years ago. And then it was more about issues around getting people, opening doors for historically marginalized, historically ignored populations, and really a lot of focus around gender and what does that mean? And when we talk about pay and gender gaps, what does that actually look like? And I think that all the changes that we went through in 2020, the economic uncertainty, the shutdown, the pandemic, the George Floyd murder, all of the civil unrest related to that, I think that really cleared the table and opened a lot of doors for executives and HR leaders to say, we don't even know where to start with all of this, but we want to do the right thing. And so we're listening, we have questions, and bringing in all the different experts that can help them through that. And I think that has really elevated the need for not just, checkbox diversity, but really internalizing, no, we need all these different perspectives, because that's the differentiator, right? That's an organization or a company survives a disruption. Sure. Whether that disruption is a new technology or that disruption is all the uncertainty that we've had over the last few years, we need those diverse perspectives. And I think that has really triggered the need for real conversations around inclusion and diversity.
I think you mentioned a great point there, which is that checkbox diversity. And I think for the businesses that have kind of followed that approach initially, they're doing it because it seems to be doing the right thing rather than authentically doing the right thing. It's those businesses that haven't necessarily been able to overcome toxic work environments or some of the problems that are associated, because they don't have an authentically great inclusive culture, because all they've done is a checkbox exercise. So what do you find when you're looking at those kind of businesses? Are there any sort of commonalities in relation to what people are doing wrong or what they get wrong when it comes to diversity and inclusion, or why they're unable to overcome, for want of a better term, a toxic work environment?
Mm-hmm. Oftentimes it's because it's not fully resourced. So I have identified over the course of the last 2 decades of doing change management all the different reasons that these initiatives tend to fail. But honestly, it comes down to typically a lack of resources. So focus, time, and dedication. It's a sustained effort. It's not something that you can have a 6-week session on unconscious bias and then all of a sudden your workplace just figures it out, right? Humans are messy, and so you need that sustained effort. And then oftentimes I think that so much of this is put into an HR silo conversation. So a lot of these initiatives, organizational health, toxic work environments, inclusion, diversity, tend to just fall in HR. And HR professionals, for all the good that they do, they may not be equipped, or they may not have the capacity or even the interest or desire to really champion the deep internal conversations that need to have. And they're really, they can be really emotionally charged conversations as well.
For sure.
And so I think it starts with taking that DEI conversation out and breaking it out of a silo of, okay, we have organizational health here and our diversity initiatives here, and then HR over here, and really seeing how it infuses into the entire organization.
HR leaders have a really tough job at the minute because they're supposed to be experts in everything. And it's simply not possible. And diversity and inclusion now is one of those areas, you mentioned it there, that often falls into, the jurisdiction of an HR professional to lead on that. So we are seeing some responses, and you mentioned resources there. So just thinking about that, well, I've seen a lot of businesses, particularly the larger brands that have probably bigger budgets, suddenly hiring chief diversity officers and different individuals specifically focused on improving diversity and inclusion for their business. And you think on one hand, that's fantastic because they're investing in change and improving the way their inclusivity across the board. Sometimes I see them only on a fixed term contract basis, which I think throws up a slightly different question. Is this a continual investment, or is this something that they think can be changed quickly? And maybe it can be, I don't know. But also, not everyone has those resources to be able to hire in a dedicated individual responsible for that element. So I guess I don't know where I'm going with the question. Maybe is it, how would you recommend a smaller business without those resources tackle the issue? And for those that have got the resources to bring in a chief diversity officer, so to speak, what's the next step after that? Because obviously that's the start of the process, I would imagine.
Yeah, and a lot of it really has to do with, they have a chief diversity officer, but where does that CDO align? Yeah. Because if that CDO aligns with HR, then they're naturally going to tend towards whatever the agendas and the initiatives of that VP or that that environment is. But to the larger question, I think it's really very similar answers in the small small business owner or a startup environment or a global entity, right? It comes down to just being aware of what are the big pitfalls, what should they be looking for, and that's where it comes to that sustained effort. So knowing that you have these aspirational goals, your CDO's outlined, here's all the things we need to accomplish. We have data from HR and we know from our operations teams, this is really what needs to change. But then you need those individuals in the middle, what I lovingly call the accidental experts, who really know how to take those initiatives, break it down, and then execute. Implement things that are safe and effective and really have meaningful impact. And that is actually one of the reasons why I wrote the book, because it makes it more accessible for individuals who don't have the resources or want to work with a consultant to really say, okay, I can break this down. And if it's just me and another coworker, here's the things that we can do within our realm to make it a little bit better. And oftentimes that's how change starts. Like, yes, you need the executives, you need the C-suite level support, but it's individuals, right? If I have two people running a call center and they decide that they want to make things a little bit more inclusive, and they take the practical steps to do that, that elevates change from the ground up. And then other departments can see, oh, wow, they're really functioning in a very healthy way. Their productivity is up, their retention's up, all the visible metrics are good. Let's find out what they're doing. And then that carries over to the other team and the other team. And that's how you get that culture of inclusion and overall good humaning is what I like to call it.
I think sometimes there's a fear in trying to make change happen. If you don't, if I look at myself, I'm a white, middle-aged Caucasian male who probably doesn't have, let's not say probably, take that bit out, definitely doesn't have the experience of what it may feel like to be a minority or so you want to promote and you want to champion inclusivity, but you don't always feel like you're the best person to drive that change. But there are so many HR leaders listening to this, and I know that collectively we should all be doing something to drive change, to improve the situation. What's the one thing that leaders can do right now if they're listening to this, no matter what their background, no matter what their culture, beliefs, sexual orientation? What would that first thing be?
Understanding that it's okay to say that you are a middle-aged white guy who doesn't have the experiences of these other populations, and really leading with that curiosity of, I want to make the world better. What does that mean? Yeah. So I think there's a lot of energy around, I'm gonna just charge up the hill and I'm gonna make this world a better place. It starts with asking. Like, you have to have a deep understanding of the lived experience of the individuals that you're trying to support. And the best way to get that, other than educating yourself, is to ask them. And I think that's where a lot of these initiatives fall down is, okay, so I'm going to take my technical background. So I spent the first 20 years of my career working primarily in tech, launching new initiatives. And it was shocking how many decisions are made for these global platforms by 6 or 7 people in a conference room in Seattle.
Yeah.
And it's they're making decisions with what they have available, but they're also making decisions largely assuming that this will work in all the other regions. And that's where we need to take a step back and say, okay, here's what I know, here's what I think, and go out to the populations that you're trying to support and find out, is this really a problem for you? And if it is a problem, how does it manifest? And would these solutions work? And bringing those individuals to the table in outlining what would the solution look like?
Yeah. I love that. And I have to say, so something that a previous speaker we had, Margaret Ocheng, who joined the podcast, who gave me some inspiration within our business. You talked about the small businesses earlier. So we're only a 20 employee business. So we're quite small. And you think, well, with only 20 employees, there isn't much we could actually do. But on the back of that podcast, we decided to launch an internal ED&I steering committee, and I didn't know where to start it. And I thought, okay, I'm going to ask all the employees, would you like to be part of this? And if you would, great. And it's open to anybody. It doesn't matter who it is. And the one thing is, I don't want to be leading it, because as MD of the business, it should come from you. And we swap the leadership each time. But I was really surprised by the findings from that we had 8 people volunteer to be part of it. And that's almost 50% of the entire business wanted to have an input. And you think, wow, if I hadn't asked the question. And we meet once a month, and the amount of outcomes we've generated from those pretty short meetings, really, and we have actionable, things we need to achieve before the next one, and someone else will lead the next one. It's been really, really encouraging. And I think I was just talking about that because you said, it doesn't matter whether you're a really big business with the resources for a chief diversity officer, of a small business like mine with 20 employees. It's really surprising when you start asking those questions, actually, how many people want to be involved and want to try and promote change. And it's been an absolutely fascinating talk. I just need to say a huge thank you again to Dr. Jen O'Ryan for joining me today. I look forward to bringing you all the next episode real soon. Take care of yourselves and each other. Thank you.